Brandon Kegel's mom died when he was 16. His grandfather died in the same manner, suicide. And then his brother was claimed by meth, leading to a family member murdering him.
In a cycle of devastation and loss, Brandon Kegel coped the only way he knew how since he was 13, the chemical way, through meth and pot. This is the rebirth story of Brandon Kegel.
I didn't grow up in a Christian household. I grew up with two sisters, the same age as me. I'm a triplet. So obviously my mother gave birth to us all at the same day, January 29th, 1981. And I had an older brother. He was a year and a half older than me. And my father kind of raised us the best way that he knew how. I had a good dad, worked a lot of jobs, 3 or 4 jobs to provide financially where my mother couldn't make up the difference. She left the house when we were 3 years old, and she got involved in drugs, ended up shooting heroin and dating a guy from the Hells Angels. I remember particularly one day, I was about 8 years old, maybe younger, and he rolls up on his motorcycle and hops off his motorcycle, says hi to us, the kids, and takes off his sleeve and reveals a tattoo that he had of my mother, of what she would look like in the future. So here I am meeting this new guy that my mother's dating, and he's got a tattoo of my mom's face on his forearm of what he said, a psychic said she's going to look like in the future. Unfortunately, my mom didn't make it that far. I'll explain that in a second. But again, my dad raised us the best that he knew how, but unfortunately in an unbelieving family, we were taught that whatever you believe is true for you, and come to find out that it just led to a path of destruction. My dad said, you know, pursue whatever makes you happy, and so that's exactly what we did. My brother ended up getting addicted to methamphetamines, started off smoking weed and just experimenting with different type of drugs, and got me to smoke my first joint when I think I was about 13 years old. And so life just kind of headed downhill from there. Me and my friend made a truce. You know, we were gonna try, you know, smoking this joint one time just out of curiosity, and we'd never do it again. But unfortunately, we had such a good time. We laughed hysterically, got high, and so from the age of 13 to the age of 18, I began smoking weed every day of my life, and that progressed and transgressed into smoking meth, popping ecstasy pills, acid, till eventually I was 18 years old. I found myself in a crack house, and kind of backtracking from there. When I was 16 years old, I had gotten a phone call while I was at school. They said, Brandon Kegel, can you please make your way to the principal's office? And whenever you get called to the principal's office, I knew that wasn't a good thing, and so I began to make my way up to the principal's office, and a teacher met me halfway, and as I'm walking towards the office, I see her, and a tear starts streaming down her face, and I'm thinking, well, you know, what's going on? This is kind of strange. And then she puts her arm around my shoulder, and I remember thinking to myself, this teacher never cared about me before. Why does she care about me now? And then she whispered in my ear and said, you know, son, your father called and said that your mother committed suicide. I later found out more of the details, that my mom had actually borrowed a shotgun from her next door neighbor, went and sat on the man's bed that she had been sleeping with, and pulled the trigger. So I lost my mom at the age of 16, and of course for me and my family, without divulging too much of my family's, you know, information, you know, we all just were headed down the wrong path, and eventually that led to my brother's death. My brother was 25 years old. He was a year older than me, so again, fast forwarding a little bit, I get another phone call, and this time my brother, his drug addiction had just spiraled out of control. Again, he was addicted to methamphetamines. To escape his drug addiction, he ended up moving out to Anchorage, Alaska, just thinking in his mind that that was the best place to get away from everything. what he didn't know is that in Alaska, they make twice the amount of money, work half the amount of time, because you can, some of the jobs you can only work from in the summertime. Wintertime, it's too snowed out, so a lot of the jobs will pay you twice the amount of money. Well, now you have a lot of people who are working half the amount of time with twice the amount of money, and so it turns out there was actually more drugs in Alaska than there probably was in Phoenix. I don't know that to be a fact, but I do know it to be true on a lot of bases, especially on the basis of the fact that my brother was more addicted out there than he was at home. So again, to try to escape his addiction, he tried to do what was right in his mind, and it didn't work out. My brother ended up getting married to a beautiful woman. Her name is Liz, and had a beautiful son. His name is Josh Jr., and ended up being abusive to his wife. They were getting in arguments. His drug addiction, like I said, it just spiraled out of control, and so his anger issues obviously escalated with that. And one day he comes home to his wife, and as I'm told, he told his wife that he was going to kill her, and his outbursts of rage threatened to kill his son. And I think this was kind of an ongoing thing, and until one day the cousin of his wife hears about the threats, says enough is enough, and so 6 o'clock in the morning, I believe it was, he walks outside with a gun as my brother and his wife are arguing. And so again, the cousin of his wife walks outside, grabs a gun, and murders my brother, shot him 7 times. And so in between that time and from the time that I started off this story when I said I was 3 years old, and 18 years old is when God grabbed a hold of my life. Again, I didn't grow up in church. I had no desire to be a Christian. Thought Christianity was just a stupid religion. I mean, after all, Christians believe that some guy died on the cross and our sins are forgiven, and who are you to say that we have sins to begin with? And so I had all these, I don't even want to say questions. I had all these doubts, and again, just thought it was a dumb religion. Had no reason to believe. But I did believe in God, believed there was a creator.